Hey, you guys, welcome! Welcome to the Big 100. I am so excited and thrilled. I can't even believe we've reached here. And I'm so excited to be celebrating this milestone with all of you because when I started this podcast, this was a milestone I'd set in my mind. I was too scared to even share it out loud that this is a number I wanted to reach even before I figured out what I am doing, before even deciding if I want to do it further, of how I will make this a business if I have to, how will I manage things, and like 100 questions, things fall into your mind when you start something. And I was like, if I'm doing this, I at least need to reach the 100th episode landmark to make sure that I've given my 100% and then take things forward from there. So, a big congratulations to me and to you because we've reached here. And I am so excited and I'm so thrilled that I get to share this journey with you. This podcast isn't like something that I come and I show up. This is something that I really put my heart and soul into. I have literally shared all parts of my life, from passing away of my mother to talking about grief, to resettling into different lives that I've had, and anything and everything. And it's just not me. I know all my guests have shared such parts of their lives, their businesses, so vulnerably and so honestly that I'm so grateful that this podcast has become such a great resource for any woman creative, any creative who's looking to find support, who's looking to grow further in their practice, who also wants community. I'm just so proud of what we've created together. So this celebration is just not me or the team. It's all of us. And I truly mean that, because I truly believe that anything that we do, it's our audience, it's the people that we made for that make it a success. It's your trust into something that you put that makes it valuable. So thank you so much. I don't care about how many numbers and things like that. All I care is, even if 2 people show up every time, even if one person decides to show up to listen to this podcast, I would keep making it, because that's just not a number. That's a human. That's a trust for me. For this episode, I thought I'll share something special, because it's been 100 episodes, 100 weeks of learnings, 100 weeks of learnings with my wonderful guest, with our conversations and things that I have learned through this podcast. And I thought to share this in a spirit of celebration, in retrospect of what I got out of this, and I thought that I would share this with you. So in this episode, I'm going to share 5 things that I have learned by interviewing all these amazing people on this podcast, from sharing my own journey of creating and launching and doing this for over 100 weeks now. And the first thing that I want to talk about is how important it is for us to believe in ourselves. I think something that has come repetitively over and over again in our conversations, in any of these episodes that we've had so far, has been how so many of us were scared to trust in ourselves, were scared to trust in our products, in our business, in our art, in our creativity. But when we did and we moved forward, it showed us the potential it had. Had we not taken that effort, had we given up on our fears, on the imposter, and really not made an effort to actually pursue and take an action on the idea that we're thinking and working on. I remember this episode with Stuart and Abby, beautiful people from Shop.Canvas, who've literally changed the way artists, creative people are creating content, video content, with the beautiful canvas. It's a product I love. I have it. And I had the chance to have them on this episode. The episode number is 63 of season 2. And, I remember Stuart talking about how when they were thinking about the idea of Canvas, they were okay. They were like, maybe I sell 20 units or something. He knew that he had potential in the idea, but he was scared and he was like, okay, I may do this. I'm going to go after this, but I'm going to, maybe I just sell 20 or maybe 30. And the day they launched, and since then in the first month, they had sold over 1,000 or something. And I remember before, I think just in the beginning of the pandemic, they had like so many sold out. Like the moment they would add product on their website, it would just go off the rack. And like they were a small business and they thought that they were making something that they would sell like maybe 20, 30 or something. Like people may not invest so much in it or whatever they had. And I'll play a clip further to show you what Stuart and Abby had to say. But that got me thinking, like, sometimes we really don't understand the potential of our ideas and we start discarding them, and the imposter kicks in and then the fear kicks in. But once we keep moving forward, sometimes miracles, like these unexpected beautiful things happen to us because we never expect them, and we would never know what potential an idea has unless we really pursue it. So I'm going to play this clip from this episode. Let's listen to this and let's hear what Stuart and Abby had to say about this. Did you ever expect that it would skyrocket like this?
No, I mean, I would obviously be lying if I said I didn't hope it would, because, in the back of your mind, you're always like, man, that'd be so cool if it just like exploded. And like I tell people all the time, I just feel like this really is kind of like a dream come true in a just a classic dream come true scenario.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect it to take off like I expected. I think we wrote out a business model for like the entire first year. And, my plan was over the course of a whole year to be kind of consistently selling like 20 a month or 20 units a month or something. And, we blew past that in like the second or third month we were doing it. And then now it's like, we're just so far beyond even those were kind of my expectations of like, all right, this will be like a huge success. If we're selling 20 a month by the end of 2020, that would just be a tremendous success. And, it's just so far surpassed that. It's just, it's kind of mind boggling. Certainly hoped that it would become what it has become, but never in a million years actually thought it would. I've done enough little business startup things in the past to know how hard they are and how like when you're a founder, you love what you're creating and you really believe in it, but it's really rare to have something that like everyone else immediately believes into and sees the value in. So I had pretty modest expectations for sure.
Yeah. Well, and for as long as I've known him, really, he's always talked about just loving everything that has to do with being an entrepreneur and what that means. And like he has the creativity, but he got his college degree in mechanical engineering. So he also has that mathematical, scientific side to his brain.
Amazing, isn't it? It's just so surprising that it's so easy for us to trust in other people. It's just so easy for us to cheer for other people. But the hardest thing is to cheer for ourselves, to put that trust in ourselves that, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to sell a million pieces or something like that. But what if you do? What if do you think like if you put that trust in yourself and act from that place, what can that do for you? Isn't that just an amazing thought? Tell me what you think about it. Okay, so let's move to our next point. Something that I know not only me, a lot of us, all us, I know a lot of people who are listening to this episode are multi-passionate. They love to create in more ways. And I've said this again and again, over and over in our conversation, that I myself associate as a creator more than anything else. And then an artist, designer, podcaster, creative entrepreneur. But for me, being a creator is my prime identity because I want to create so many things in my life. Like when I started this podcast, my biggest fear was, oh my God, I'm starting another project. I don't know where I would go from this. Does this mean another project on my plate, and I have no clue why I'm doing this and how it's going to help me, and all those things, because I've always had this habit of, I get an idea and then I want to pursue it. And when I think it's a great thing, I personally think it's a great thing. The popular belief has always been you need to be hyper focused, you work on one thing. Artists have also been always in the past been advised, niche down, work in one style, one medium, things like that. And I think it's a very tricky balance. I think it's entirely to each its own, what you feel with what you're creating. And for me, I really love to create in multiple ways. And by that, I mean, I want to make a film someday. I want to do an event maybe someday. Or there's so much that I want to do. I mean, of course, I want to do more courses and work with people in workshops, and of course create art, and I want to make sculptures, and I want to have exhibits and experience and tours, and my mind thinks creatively. And when I see something and I'm like, how do I use my skill and make this a creative project? So that's how I work. So when I started Arts to Hearts, it's always been a creative project for me. It's a very big part of my own practice because that's how I create. And I remember this conversation with beautiful, amazing Juliana, who's just an outstanding woman. We had such an amazing conversation, I remember. And I remember she came out and she spoke about being multi-passionate, the shame we have sometimes, how confusing it feels to us, and how we approach it sometimes. And this is episode number 54 from season 1, where Juliana and I spoke about a lot of things. She shared her journey of how she has seasons and how she became an encaustic artist. Then she was an author. She is an author actually. Then she has this beautiful podcast called Flow. You should hear it, because it's just, she creates in so many things, in so many ways, that it's just so beautiful to see her creativity. And in our conversation, she came out and she spoke about what she thinks and what goes in her mind, and how she associates with her own identity as someone who creates in different forms and ways, and being multi-passionate and being a compulsive maker. Let me play this clipping for her, and you should hear yourself what she has to say. Let's go.
Oh my God, I'm so happy that this is happening here with me. So, okay, let's get into it. Before we go, let's talk a little bit about who you are. So, people who are listening to us, can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure.
I'm looking forward to this answer right now.
Because I don't have one scripted. I think everybody is always interested to hear what I have to say, because I make a new bio up every single time somebody asks me that. I'm like, who am I today? What happened last night? And I update it. It's always a refresh.
God.
Yeah, I'll see what comes out. Let's just see what I can spitball here.
Let's see. Let's go with the flow.
Yeah, let's go with the flow. So the reason I'm laughing at that is Flow is the name of my podcast.
Yes.
So I am Juliana Laurie. I am a mother of 3 small children. My children are all under the age of 4. I have an almost 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And I primarily, I'm best known for the photography work I did before I became a mom. And then during COVID, I did a lot of encaustic 3-dimensional artwork. But recently, when I found out we had our 3rd, I switched over to writing. So it's been an ever-changing sort of an evolution of myself as an artist, and taking in multiple art forms and finding joy in all of them. And I recently did launch a podcast. So for me,
Words are art, and the podcast is called Flow, and it is a highly produced piece. It is the story of me writing my book. So it's the story of how I am managing this very hectic home life with the kids being so little, and also an incredibly an insatiable desire to create that is such a part of who I am, and it's something I'm not really able to let go of or even put on pause. So flow is my way of stepping you into my brain of what's going on.
This is so, so amazing. I especially love how the words flew out of your mouth, which was that you transitioned from photography to encaustic writing. And I just love how confidently you said that.
Yes. I love being multi-passionate. I love the fact that nothing is guaranteed and nothing is stagnant, but that's just the way life is. I think one thing that having my kids so quickly really taught me is that, change is inevitable. Change is something that happens every day for us. And for some people, change happens much more dramatically in certain seasons of our lives, but it really gives you this perspective of like nothing is sacred, right? Everything can change. Anything can change. Your life is not, as we just discussed, it's not the scripted bio, it's not something that is cookie cutter. And I celebrate that. I love celebrating that part of myself. I love accepting that I'm a little bit impatient with my art and that I am always looking to try something new, and I don't really settle very easily into one medium and then stay there. But I like that about myself. I'm really proud of it. Like you said, it comes off in that confidence because it's something that I truly love about who I am.
Isn't that beautiful? I love her line when she says, life is not scripted. Sometimes we make all of these stories in our mind, like this is how my life needs to span out, this is how my career should look, this is how I should look. And it's not always that. I got a huge shock when everything changed for me after COVID. My mom passed away, and that was something that I never in my dreams thought that this would become a reality for me. And it shook every part of me, and I learned this the hard way, and I'm still accepting this, to be honest, because we have always been taught like this is how certain things happen, and we all imagine our futures and not really imagine. I think imagining is a good way, creative way, but planning and jotting down, I think it takes away a lot of fun, and acceptance towards what is happening is sometimes in our control, but not always. And we need to trust in our life and in our gods and universe and whatever we believe in worshiping. And we have to let it go and just enjoy life as it is and celebrate who we are and ourselves, and whatever that means. If you're someone who wants to be hyper focused, if you're someone who wants to create 10 things like I do, and whatever that is, just acceptance of self is something that I think is so important that we all need to, maybe practice better. And this is something that has come up again so much in our conversations in the podcast, where, we feel confused with what we want to create. A lot of us want to create in more than one ways. And then, I think this was a wonderful learning for me also via talking to our wonderful guests on how they deal with their inner fears and their critics, and how they just deal with life and their identities. Let me know what you think. Are you a multi-passionate person? Do you feel lost sometimes because you create too much, or are you someone who's hyper focused and okay, this is what I'm going to do? Tell me what do you think. Okay, number 3, and this one is really interesting. I'm sure you must have heard this, grass is always greener on the other side. And honestly, I think this couldn't be more true in today's time. We are all spending so much of our time on social media, creating content and always trying to show or sell, or we are in this place where a lot of us need, feel the pressure to be perfect all the time, to project ourselves as experts, or all of those things. And in that process, I think it's not something that only hurts the person who's doing that, because internally there's a lot of people who say that it's exhausting, but it's also something that sets a very wrong precedence for people who are looking at it. And I think we all juggle with this. Whenever I remember any day I'm having a hard time, I would scroll on Instagram, and I think I feel even more depressed, because I would look at other people and I feel like, oh my god, this person has everything sorted, and they're doing so great, and look at me, what am I doing? And in that process, I've also realized that even though if I was at 1, I know that I've moved to 3 or 2 or whatever that is, that I've grown in whatever ways I was working in. But the moment I start seeing other people and what they are doing, my growth becomes negligible, and I do not look at it anymore, and all I look at is what they've done, and my perspective shifts, because I am then just comparing myself to them. And in that comparison, I always feel I've not done enough, because I'm always following and looking up for people who are doing way better than me, and that's something I love. But I also need to know that I look up to them, and they serve great inspiration for me, but that's their own life. And what I see is just some part of it, and some part of it that may not be their entire life. And that's true for all of us. A lot of us use our platforms and social media for our businesses, for our works, and we can't put ourselves out there all the time 24/7. So of course, what we see online is only the glimpse of a life and not the entire life. And knowing that, we need to make sure that we're never falling in the trap of comparing ourselves with others, and always looking within that, okay, this is where I am, this is where I need to be. And these judgments, I think, need to be from within. Our goals need to come from where our ideas and dreams are, not from what someone else wants to do. And this, I feel like I've also been in this trap a lot of times, and it takes a lot of effort to come out of it. And I remember in episode 57, season 2, with Ali, who's an amazing artist. She has these amazing projects, murals, books, and she's created a 6-figure business. And we had a very interesting conversation, and she spoke about how we look at other people's life and how it impacts who we are and what we become. So I'm going to play this clip, and let's hear what she had to say.
You have grown your business. You are definitely great with what you do, not only your creative side, but for your business side. What is that one thing that you think, especially anyone who's listening, because a lot of artists have same desires as I'm sure that you're making possible too. And I think what I really absolutely admire, when you do something, like when I see you do things, it inspires me, and it makes it believe me that if she can do it, then it's also possible for me. But again, with social media now getting on our nerves a lot of times, and you've been widely popular on Instagram, let's also just touch upon your journey of Instagram and how has that helped you and how you approach it, so that anyone who wants to have or has similar goals can do that. Just in general, my question is, what has helped you the most, and what can people who are hearing right now pick up so that they can move the needle for themselves and go chase the dreams that they have?
Yeah, definitely. Not to be a Debbie Downer of this question, but I think definitely knowing that Instagram is only a highlight reel and you only see certain aspects of one person's life, and realizing like everyone's journey is going to be different. So like for me, like I don't have kids. It's just me and my husband. I've been with my husband since I was 14, so we're definitely not in like I know. So we've been together for a long time, so we're super comfortable just chilling. If I'm working in bed and he's working in bed, like we're okay and we can still connect and things like that. But yeah, so I don't have kids. I've been with my husband for a while. I live in a very large city that is great for community and really supports the arts. There's like all of these different aspects that are behind the scenes that someone might not realize that helps and benefits me growing my business. So you have to go into knowing like the time that you put in is what you're also going to get out. So I put a lot of time into this business, and so I'm able to get a lot of this, the benefits of growing it. And yeah, so I put a lot of time into it, which makes it seem like I get a lot out of it, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely
so that's definitely like, yes, like dream big, but also make sure that you set up your, what's the word? Dream big, but also know like, not like your limitations, but just like know that there's so many other things that go into dreaming and going into making plans in your business, and making sure that you also set those up, and also knowing, okay, like I want to be like LAK, but I live in this small town that doesn't have a lot of walls available. Like maybe move to a bigger town, things like that. So, but yeah, Instagram is a really, really great tool. It's a love-hate relationship for sure. You feel like you kind of have to like constantly like feed the beast. But I've actually made like some of my best friends off of Instagram. So like the magic definitely happens once you get off of Instagram. A lot of my business does come from Instagram because they have seen my Instagram, but they've also has come from word of mouth of like, yes, they might have known me from Instagram, but like, for example, I got to deal with Fossil because they were in a meeting. Fossil was meeting and they're like, hey, we should do a mural. And so one girl was like, oh my gosh, I know this girl on Instagram. They showed my portfolio and they were like, oh, she's great. Let's book her. So definitely the magic happened. Yeah. So definitely like, you definitely want to be top of mind. Of when someone is like, oh, I need something, you want to be the first person that they think of. So in order to do that, you have to really connect with those people on a personal level.
I've got the fourth one for you, and I'm sure you'll really like this one because there's nobody who's not felt this. Getting over our fears. We're all people, creative people who love to make things, and with making, launching, creating things comes the fear of failing, the fear of people, the fear of judgment, the fear of failure. There's so many things that come up, like anything that's dark, there's light. Like when there is the spark of creating something, there's also the fear of losing it, like being not good at it, or being judged for it, or being too vulnerable. Like so many things that come up. I remember when I started this podcast, my biggest fear was why would someone listen to me? What do I have to say? Or people might make fun of me, or what if I say something wrong? Or that was actually a big one because I am a person innately who loves to ask questions, and I know I was told and made fun of in some time in past for this trait of mine, because I would ask so many questions and I would dig deeper, and that was something that I felt ashamed for a very long time. But only when I started this podcast, eventually I realized that something that I thought was like a weakness was actually a very big strength for me, and it actually was one of the things that would have held me back from starting this podcast. But I was like, I might as well ask those questions and let it be and figure out what it means than just not do it. And I know, like, I've also had so many projects that I've worked and thought of, but sometimes a fear kicks in and I'm like, I freeze in that moment and I can't do it anymore. And I remember my conversation with Emily Mallet in episode number 94 of the season 2, where she recently launched her solo show, which was outstanding. She did this all by herself with the help of her husband, and she was also pregnant. And like, she's this, I was stunned. This episode was actually one of my favorite because it was such a great resource for anyone in the coming years. I know this is such an incredible episode because Emily really talked about her process of putting up like a solo show, the fears that came in, and like, things like when you start a business, like you come up with who's going to buy my product, where are people are going to make fun of me if I don't have sales, if I start a course I will never have students, or like things like that. And well, all those fears are real, but they're also not the end of the world. I've had several offers or things that I've done, that products that I've made in the past and nobody bought in the first instant, and maybe somebody bought in the second instant. But because I never kept on going, I will never know if somebody would have bought it later. And that's the thing. We come with this idea that anything that we make, it's like either it's good or bad. If someone's in the first place have bought it or got it, it's great. If not, it's a failure. But that's not true. Anything takes time and effort and a lot of hit and trial for us to actually make it a success. And I loved my conversation with Emily in this episode because she spoke about a lot of things that come up for a lot of us when we're trying to host events. Our solo shows, like, what if people don't buy? What if people don't come? And I am like a full overthinker, so I know what goes inside my head, and I know a lot of people do. But what was surprising was how Emily approached to her that actually made her through like this 3 garage areas. She did interactive installations. She did this fabulous show that you should definitely check out. So let's go hear what she has to say.
Yeah, I'm definitely, it's so funny. People don't think I'm a negative thinker, but I'm always thinking of the worst case scenario. Nice. But I'm countering that and thinking, okay, if this is what's going to happen, how can I balance that or like be ahead of it? So I can definitely get inside my own head. And the show that I did had a lot of kind of abstract interactive elements. And I thought, is this too weird? Like, are people going to get it? And so it made me self-conscious because I was showing my art in a non-traditional way. And, even sometimes art shown in a very traditional way, works on panel or on canvas, they can still be misinterpreted or people, just don't like them. And so taking my art off of the panels and making it a 3D experience people interacted with was a very vulnerable thing. And I remember even the day of the show thinking, maybe I just won't show this. And then my husband, I'm so thankful for him. He's incredibly supportive.
I love his cartoons. Oh God, I love where you live. This is like such a, oh God.
I do feel like we live in a little fairy tale town.
Really? Oh, yeah, wow. I should pack my bags and come, I think.
Yes, you should visit. Yeah, everyone loves Peter. He's a great person. But he was the one who, and he's a great sounding board for me because he has very good taste in art and he personally loves buying art and collecting art. So the fact that he was so confident in my work really helped me push through my fears and made me accountable to actually follow through with it because, he was in on the planning. If it was just in my head, no one would have known the difference, but he was the one who was there and it was like, no, this is good. We need to be showing this.
But also like not just the fear of the work, but like it's a lot of responsibility. And it's even if like, I don't know if that's just me or a lot of us, like I am a perfectionist. Like I'm a recovering perfectionist, but that I just don't feel ever goes away. It's like it still stays in your head. Like, when you think about, like, the thoughts that even if I make the good work, but solo show is just not about putting a work. Will I be able to call enough people? If would people like it? Will I, even if you would, the thoughts are very, very genuine. And I'm not even discarding my feelings, because we all feel that. Like, also, I think, because it's also not so normalized, which it completely should be. I think there's so much beauty about artists owning their own solo shows. I think I've had a few. I just visited here recently, and I love that idea. I think more of us need to do that. But there's so much fear, like, who will we invite? If people would come, will I sell? Will I not sell? Will they like? Will they not like? Am I too much? Is this too traditional? Like, what were yours, and how let's talk about what were yours, and then how did you deal with them, and how that panned out.
Yeah, I definitely had fears that not a single piece would sell. And I had fears that no one would show up. But I think part of what really helped me is that I chose to only create work, this whole Mind Blooms concept. I only chose to create it because it was so personal to me and because it was so special. And I think when you are able to be in that mindset and creating work that you just have to create, that kind of, I don't want to say it doesn't matter if your work doesn't sell, because of course you want it to sell, but it becomes more value. There's more value in the artwork than just in the sales. And so I remember thinking, if stuff doesn't sell, like, I will happily have this in my home because I love it so much and it's so personal to me. And so that was how I balanced the fears of not selling, and then the fear of no one showing up. There's definitely that fear of, throwing a party and no one comes, of course. But to me, it was more of, I have at least my solid, 10 friends who will be there because they want to be supporting the show and they believe in my work. And I thought to myself, if this is nothing more than just a party with my friends, that's fear. Still a celebration. And
I love
it is still like crossing the finish line of completing the show. And I have the most important people there celebrating with me. And so that just kind of, even if it was true that no one would show up, I knew that I had a group of people who wanted to celebrate this show with me. And so having that truth along with the fear, I think, is what, can keep you going and pushing through to just see it to the end.
Okay, exciting, isn't it? I love all my guests. I love these conversations. I can't believe, like, we've done so many amazing things and had learned so much that I'm just looking back at all of these amazing conversations that I feel like, oh my God, how do I even put it in 5? Like, it took us a lot of effort to break all these episodes into 5 major chunks. And now I'm going to talk about the last, which is the craziest, because a lot of us feel scared of it. Talking about fears, yes, which is change. I remember this was a big one for me, when I started to take Arts to Hearts very seriously, because at that point, I was focusing on my art practice, and I felt this, and I'll be 100% honest, like, when I was here practicing and making the work and being in the studio and just focusing on my art, somewhere down in my heart, I wasn't feeling myself completely, because I wasn't this person that could see herself in the studio all by herself 24/7. And I wanted to meet people, I wanted to have conversations, I wanted to create so much more. And for some time I tried to fit in, and when I didn't, it broke that picture of what I had seen myself and planned for myself. Like, okay, I want to become an artist, and this is how I will become. So when I started to shift some things, and when Arts to Heart started, and I started to see myself in not one role but multiple roles, and then things grew from there. It was a big change, and change is hard and uncomfortable for a lot of us. So I think for me, I'm a person who takes time to adjust to changes. But once I adjust, I get into my groove very soon and fast, and I get into my form. But that whole transition period is very challenging, and I'm an overthinker, and I think so much, and that's kind of crazy because I know a lot of us, like creative people, are overthinkers, and I was stunned when Emily in the previous clipping said that she's not, because, and I'm like, isn't that a blessing? I would love that. But yeah, change. I think there's a lot of pressure for artists when it comes to making work. If they're making a certain kind of work, if they're doing something and suddenly they start experimenting, even if just not within our practice, if you're trying to do more than one thing, there's certain kind of shame associated with that because we feel like, oh, am I changing? And too many changes happening too fast? Maybe. But evolution, change is a part of our process. We evolve into something and we change and we grow. And this is something that we all need to come to terms with. Who I was 2 years ago and who I am today, I have changed and evolved like anything. And I'm grateful for that. But it wasn't easy. It was hard as hell because I've become this person that I didn't plan for. My reality has become something I never planned for. And it gets hard, but because I had to come to terms with it, and I kind of started to get into it. Sometimes the transition is not smooth, but I'm grateful for these experiences I've had. Arts to Hearts, the podcast, being a multi-passionate creative, I would do it all over again if you would ask me. So yeah, I remember episode 87 of the season 2 with Claire, who actually spoke about her career, how she was so established for and known for a certain kind of work, and when she started to shift things, her fears came up and what she thought about it. And this is something that we all feel scared of. Feel like, oh my god, if I'm doing this, what if I shift things, and how, if people don't recognize us anymore, things like that. So this, I feel, is something that we all need to come to terms with, and we've been constantly speaking about this on the podcast, that it's okay to experiment. It's actually good to experiment, and we should do that not only in our practice, in our careers, in our lives. We need to keep our ideas open and be an open creative more than anything, Okay, so I'm going to play this clip from Claire. Let's listen to her. A lot of times we feel like, oh, we're jumping from one place to another. In this scope of experimentation, a lot of us feel lost. And I think especially with the external pressure of honing to one style, or keep working on one thing. And how have you dealt with when you're way ahead in your career? I feel like when you are young and raw and you still have time, you're still very open to experimentation. I think the risk is less, I feel like, because we feel like we're still starting. But when you have moved ahead in your career, where you have moved forward, you still know what works. And that, I think, when you knew your paper cuts were doing well, they're still doing well, but then the urge of taking a risk of doing something different and then going for that, how does that feel?
Oh, terrifying. I mean, I spent most of the time in a state of fear and horror of, what am I doing? This is crazy. But at the same time, I just couldn't not do it. I mean, it's like there was an impulse, and I just think you have to follow those feelings. And the temptation, obviously, to burn down the house is strong. I'm never making it on the paper cut, but obviously I don't think that's really what I want to do. But I think I just reached a point I couldn't not do it. And I could have ignored that feeling, but I think it would have made me I would have been very unhappy. And living the creative life is nothing if not, about kind of,
if it doesn't
make you happy, what am I doing? Right. I might as well go and do a job that I want to be sad
and be unhappy. But at least you'll be more stabilized.
Exactly.
Have all of those things and be unhappy. It still makes sense.
Yeah, so you might as well just, and I mean, there is, if you, I can't think of the phrase, but if you have a desire, it's like the universe it's there for a reason, it's not, I think, you kind of have to follow it and see where it goes. I mean, it's like, pulling a string on a sweater, isn't it? It's like, you've got to unravel it to see what comes out at the end. And it's like something different. And I think it's unrealistic. I mean, for me, to expect people to be the same the whole of their life.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think what you want in your 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s and beyond is kind of different. And, if you're a mother or, a parent or, whatever changes you make, we're all making changes all the time. Yeah. And I'm not quite sure where the idea that you can't ever change your creative practice comes from. I mean, we all have it, and it's like I think it's fear or something. I'm not really sure.
I think also I don't even know how we buy into this, because most of us, for us, our work, our life and our work are not separate, and they're very intertwined, and they work hand in hand. Anything that affects into our work comes into our work, affects into our life, and anything that happens into our lives also goes into our work. And if I think the Claire in 20s, the Claire in 30s, and the Claire in 50s, I'm sure there are 3 different Claires who've had different ways of looking at things. We change as people with time, and that's for sure going to affect who we are. It's going to show into our work. And if you're not doing that, then I feel like, are we even being true to ourselves, true to our work? Because I think that's why we signed up for being an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, you change your hair, you change your makeup, you change your clothes.
Yes.
I mean, I wear the same clothes I wore or makeup I wore when I was in my 20s. I mean, I thought it would be weird. So why? Yeah, I think it's a fear-based thing that you have to kind of, if some work is popular, you have to kind of keep making it. But why can't the new work you make be just as popular, or maybe it's even more popular?
Yes.
I think it's and it's like, why we signed up for this. It's to explore our creativity, and I think it's amazing that people make paintings one day and the sculpture the next, or that we have that ability to do different things, and they come from different places, and you feel differently when you're at different ages, and you need different ways to express yourself. I think that's super important, really.
Amazing, isn't it? It's strange how we react and we behave as people. Like, I love when Claire says, how our hair changes, our makeup changes, our clothes change over the time. And definitely, I no longer feel like a person I was 2 years ago. I don't look like that. I mean, of course, I look like myself, but not exactly like that person. I don't dress like that altogether. Or my makeup has changed, or things like that. And even when those changes are easier and we get bored, it's high time we accept that change is a part of all parts of our life, and we need to be embracing that, loving that, and just learning from all of it. So, okay, these were my top 5 for this 100th episode. This is what I have learned and put together for you. If you're a regular listener, I would love to know what has been your favorite memory of the Arts to Hearts podcast. If anything, you want to celebrate this with us, can you leave us a review and share what's your best memory of listening to this podcast, or who's your favorite guest, and what's that you want to hear from us in the coming episodes? Because believe me, I'm not stopping here. There's a lot more, bigger, wider, intense conversations that you will hear from women from all around the world, artists, curators, content creators. I am going wild, and I'm telling you, you are on a wild journey with me. So tell me, what's your favorite moment? What's that you've learned through this podcast? Who's your favorite guest? Tell us your memory. Let's seal this moment before we move forward, and leave us a review, share this in your stories. And I will see you in the next episode, which will be 101. Thank you so much for joining me. This is again your host Charuka, and I'm sending you a big hug. Thank you so much for being here with us for 100 weeks, and thank you for your continued support. Love you. Bye.